Welcome to the e-commerce growth show, brought to you by Segmentify.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the e-commerce growth show. My name is Phil Kay, and I'm the partnerships guy for Segmentify. And as you know, we're into the third series of the show now, and the third kind of vlog episode, if you like. And as you know, this series is all about highlighting how some of our customers are actually using Segmentify to solve some of their more complex personalization needs. And I'm really excited today to introduce you to a guy called John Bruce. Now, John Bruce is the head of e-commerce for Celtic FC, and he has been there since 2016 with 12 years experience now across e-commerce and digital marketing roles in various different kind of verticals, from the public sector to DIY, B2B, and even funeral plans, would you believe it? So now we're into football, which is awesome. And so he's overseen the transformation of Celtic's e-commerce operation with a move away from third-party supplier to a more in-house operation, and has achieved fantastic results already by increasing revenue of their operation by over 300%. So really excited to hear more about that. Hey John, how you doing?
Hi Phil, I'm good, thanks.
Great. Well, that sounds like a really great story. And obviously doing some great work at Celtic there. How did you get into Celtic FC? That's a pretty cool role.
Yeah, I was quite lucky. I mean, I've always been a passionate football fan from a young age, and even managed to kind of squeeze it into my dissertation topic at university when I was doing that. So I actually interviewed one of my colleagues now at Celtic for my dissertation all those years ago. So it must have been fate or something. But
yeah, absolutely.
I'm actually, I must admit, not a Celtic fan. So I'm a Newcastle fan, unfortunately, I should say. So used to travel up and down with my dad for about 15 years from Scotland for all the home games. So, I mean, really, when I saw the job come up at Celtic, it was too good an opportunity to kind of let it go past. And I was fortunate enough to get the role. So it's a really interesting industry for me to be part of. And I do consider myself lucky to have found the role, because there's not many roles like this in football.
No, absolutely. Do you get like perks in the sense that you watch all the games from the box and all that?
Sometimes, not all the time, but I only tend to kind of go along to the bigger ones, sort of Champions League games, or maybe a Rangers game, experience that as well.
Yeah, obviously you'll be taking your trusted partners to those kind of events as well, right?
Of course. Oh, yeah.
Oh, brilliant, nice one. So, I mean, thanks so much, as I say, for being on the show today. And the main theme, if you like, about what we're going to talk about today is a few things, but we're going to start it off with the kind of reasoning and how it's been for you to take the operation from being outsourced effectively to in-house. And obviously that's not a small decision to make. There's some significant investment required there. So do you want to give us a bit of a rundown on the sort of major factors that you took into consideration for doing that?
Yeah, sure. I think it really starts from wanting to take control of the sort of end-to-end journey for our customers. I think because we worked with a third-party supplier who were based down in Manchester, there was kind of this disconnect between the rest of our retail operation and our online operation. So we've still got 10 bricks and mortar stores across Scotland and Ireland. And you kind of had this online store which felt like it was separate. And obviously in the world that we live in now, customers expect you to be multi-channel, omni-channel, however you want to call it. And whether they're shopping online or in store, they expect the same experience. So we really wanted to give them the same experience shopping online, dealing with people who actually were employed by the club, working for the club, so that it was a bit more personal. Whereas before it was phoning a call centre in Manchester for a company who dealt with several brands across sport. So that was a big part of it. It was difficult for us to get changes implemented on the website. If we had ideas, we would have to go through a very arduous process to try and convince the third party to make those changes, because ultimately if they change something on our site, they would have to change it across all of their sites because they were all built on the one platform. And so, and ultimately it was about increasing profitability as well, because I believed, looking at the numbers, that if we brought things back under our control, we would significantly increase the amount of profit that we were putting back into the football club, which is ultimately what we're there to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thinking about that, I mean, you mentioned in the beginning, or in my introduction, that you've done a phenomenal job of that already and increased revenue by over 300%. So, I mean, what have you seen were the kind of the contributing factors to that growth that you've done, and how does that relate also to the COVID element?
Yeah, so COVID's played a part. We've seen a significant increase in the last 6 months after COVID. Obviously, initially when our stores were closed, a lot of that business was driven online. But even since our stores have reopened, we've continued to see online perform above expectations. So that's undoubtedly played a part. But before that, it was really about we needed to get more traffic into the website, and that was something that I identified very early on. We probably weren't exploiting our marketing channels as well as we could have been doing. So we've been able to increase the amount of traffic, the visibility of the site to our supporters. We've improved what we're doing on a marketing front, and then we've also improved the site itself, which has increased the conversion rate, has increased our average basket values. So all those things combined really led to a big upturn in revenue even before COVID came into play. I think those changes that we've made over the past couple of years really put us in a much stronger position. So when COVID did come along, we were able to capitalize on that because of the changes that we've made to the site itself. And bringing it in-house was a big part of that, actually redesigning the site, making sure that it was designed from a mobile first point of view, because we now know that kind of 75% of our traffic is coming in from a mobile phone. So making sure that that's how we were designing the site was to cater for everybody that was coming in a mobile first and foremost. And we've seen the results of that with the increased conversion. I mean, we've basically doubled the conversion on the mobile site since we brought it back in-house. So
amazing. That's amazing. I mean, that's. I'm always very keen, sort of following the mobile trend, actually, because I mean, I'm still in this cohort of older guys, I suppose. Well, I can't really generalize like that. I mean, just me in myself. I don't follow through, if you like. I don't buy on the mobile. You know, there was all this talk about everybody uses the mobile to browse and then buy on the laptop. I am still that person.
Sure.
Even though my other half actually, she'll happily do a Tesco order online or whatever. So have you seen a serious shift? I suppose you've already said that in terms of your customers then coming on the mobile experience and finalizing and finishing on that experience, right, on that platform, and buying the stuff they want.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, 75% of our traffic comes in a mobile, but it's now over 60% of our sales as well. So we have seen that shift, and it's across all demographics. So you're right. Like, I think traditionally people would have looked at it and said, well, that'll be a younger audience that are happy to shop on their mobile phone. But I mean, even up to like people over 60, we know are completing on a mobile phone and buying on a mobile.
So, do you think that's changed then now? Like, I mean, I mean, obviously I am behind the curve. I get it. But in terms of the wider mobile experience now, is it standard now that this, like a few years ago when it was all a bit mobile, is that all just gone now and it is just standard? Everyone's completing in a large degree across all the verticals and demographics on mobile now.
Obviously, I don't know across all of them, but I think broadly speaking, yes. I think there's those kind of those blockers to conversion that you maybe had sort of 4 or 5 years ago. The worries around security, the fact that people maybe didn't make the mobile experience as great as the desktop experience. I think those things are gradually just being broken down, and I think as technology continues to improve and payment options become easier as well now, I think it's a lot easier for people to have that confidence just to do a couple of clicks on the mobile and use a really simple payment option, not having to input your card details into the mobile site or whatever, just a click of a button and off you go.
That's right. Yeah, no, and I think, like you say, watching all sorts of people doing it, they actually say that it's more secure, right? Because you can use your mobile, obviously even in a bricks and mortar, as a card, much more securely than the card itself. And like you say, you've preloaded securely on a phone, so it kind of makes a lot of sense. And you know,
strangely enough, a little anomaly in our data, but we've actually seen a kind of resurgence of people purchasing on desktop in the youngest demographic. And I don't know if that's due to the fact that a lot of them are quite into gaming, like with these big kind of gaming computers and gaming chairs and things, and spend a lot of their lives on that. So I don't know if that, but we've just noticed that maybe over the past 12 months, that's the group there's been a wee resurgence in desktop, which is strange. But
yeah, that is interesting. It's funny actually, because I mean, talking slightly off topic briefly, we were just talking this morning about how, like, you got my generation where, you know, or certainly, again, maybe I can't speak for my generation, but certainly myself being sort of in my 40s, I never really became a slave to social media. You know, not that you necessarily should call it that, because the people that, you know, spend a lot of time on social media would not feel that they're enslaved by it, right? Let's be honest. But it's interesting how I think some of the younger generations, you know, grew up with your Instagram and so on, and it very much is a part of their life. Whereas someone like myself, I've never looked at a news feed, you know, in my life. I've never looked at a reel, you know, come up on either LinkedIn or anything. But then we're talking about the very latest generation, where there is this indicative sign that there's a potential kind of rebellion going on in terms of social media and all the pressure around it, in terms of the expectation of how you should look and everything's perfect and so on. So that's interesting whether anything of that is linked in with this as well, such that the usage of the mobile for basically everything is moving away again, or whether it's a blip, I don't really know.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. It's an interesting area.
Keep an eye on it.
Yeah, no, completely. Anyway, so kind of bringing it back to what we were talking about in the beginning. Obviously, you've mentioned a few bits and pieces already around, you know, bringing the operation in-house. But in terms of breaking it down a little bit more on some of the focus on the customers that you mentioned earlier, how is doing that, in bringing it in-house, what other ways have there been that have allowed you to focus more on the customer?
Yeah, I think from an operational point of view, obviously it allows us to have more focus on a customer in terms of getting to know the customers and kind of trying to give them that personal experience where we know who our regular customers are. Our team in customer services have got kind of very good relationships with our kind of most important customers that shop with us all the time. That's something that we wouldn't have had in the past, and it's almost going back to that sort of traditional sort of small store mentality where you know the people, you know what they're looking for, you can kind of cater for them. But kind of broader than that, I think really having control of having control of the site itself has allowed us to make changes quickly based on what our customers are looking for, what they're feeding back to us, what we're seeing in reviews, whereas before that wouldn't have been possible. And ultimately, we've now got the data to be able to kind of allow us to look at these things, because when we were with the third party, the data always going to the third party, and we would have to kind of almost go and request that to look at reports or start to try and analyze what was going on. Now we're getting direct access to the data around the online store, and that allows us to make decisions and be a lot more focused on what they're looking for and what they want. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So around data, are we talking about multiple sources of data? Obviously, in terms of Segmentify, we're talking about Trendify. Are you getting the lion's share of the data insight that you need from there, or are there other areas of data that you're getting from as well?
We've obviously got things like Google Analytics on the site to be able to
Yeah.
look at what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
We also, all transactional data gets passed into our central data warehouse, which the club has.
Yeah.
So that will be matched up to anyone who buys season tickets or interacts with us across any of our other touch points, whether it's match day hospitality, stadium tours, so we can start to build up a picture of
Yeah.
how those individuals are shopping with us across the entire club.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives us some useful information. But
Sure.
yeah, from a purely e-commerce standpoint,
Yeah.
I think having Segmentify on the site and access to the likes of Trendify has really helped us to sort of understand what's going on the website on a much deeper level than something like Google Analytics could ever do.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so and going a little bit sort of deeper in terms of some of the application of the data's there in Trendify. Obviously, we work, as you know, really hard to sort of roll up data to a sort of a format that's easy to get hold of to be an action. Could you give our viewers a bit of a flavour of some examples of how you've been able to move from not having that insight to now having it, and what sort of results have you managed to be able to, or problems have you managed to solve, from this data now that you're getting?
Yeah, we've got I've probably got a few examples. So with things like the product widgets as an example that are on the site, obviously the engine can pick up things that customers are looking at quite frequently, and then can start to display those products in the widgets to those customers at various points of the journey. But we've also used it to actually help us promote a specific product at a specific time of year, and make sure that that's pinned at all points along that customer journey so that they'll see it. So like Father's Day is a big time of the year for us, because lots of people are buying Celtic related merchandise for fathers. And we sell a Father's Day card every year, and this year was the first time that we've been able to sort of keep that pinned really prevalently through the customer journey because of the Segmentify widgets, and the sales of that were incredible. Like we fixed that to position 1 in the basket as like an add-on for everybody, and we've sold like as many Father's Day cards online this year in the build-up as we normally would across the whole of our retail operation, just because we were getting it in front of people.
Really? Wow.
And that's something that before somebody would probably have had to make that conscious decision to say, oh, wait a minute, I wonder if they do cards, and go and look in that section to add it in, whereas we were making it easier for them to add that into their basket. We've also had a good example where we might have in the past have not fully understood that a product wasn't performing for a particular reason. So like we might have realized that it wasn't selling, but we might not have known why, or may have been kind of guessing as to why. This year we noticed that through Trendify that there was a particular product that lots of people were viewing but nobody was buying it. So we were able to sort of drill down into that and look at why that might be, and we actually realized that it was a bit of an oversight, because we were making a move from New Balance as a brand to Adidas in the summer and switching kit suppliers, and we actually had a pair of branded New Balance trainers which hadn't been marked down in line with the rest of the New Balance stuff. So loads of people were going in to look at them, but were obviously thinking that they're quite expensive compared to the rest of the stuff. So we were then able to sort of mark them down and suddenly see them shifting and the stock moving. So that was something we picked up just by looking at the Trendify reports, which we might not necessarily have done if we hadn't had that there.
No, I mean, that's so encouraging to hear that you've got that data at your fingertips now. And isn't it amazing, isn't it? When you say where it's outsourced, you've lost control of that. And I suppose, as you say, you came into the role, you recognized, hold on a minute, that there's got to be something going on here. You've got under the bonnet, you've brought it in-house, you've got the right tool to get that insight, and then bang, you're seeing these amazing turnaround where, like you say, the right product is being floated up through the engines. You haven't got to try and manually work that out and manually curate it with all the other things you've got to do. You just literally rely on the engines to do that for you based on the behavior of the users. That's so cool. You know, you were talking about another really cool example. Was it about the car mats that you didn't realize and Segmentify sort of floated them up?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we sell, like, as I'm sure you can imagine, anything that you can put a crest on. Literally, we sell it. So we've probably got any one time maybe around up to 800 products on the site. So in the past, it's sometimes things would be buried down in a category somewhere. Yeah. Somebody would have to really be looking for it to go and find it. So at Christmas this year, we had branded car mats, and normally speaking, we'd have probably taken the whole of the Christmas period to shift them. And the widgets and Segmentify suddenly realised that people were interested in them and were purchasing them. So they started to obviously be displayed to more and more people in the widgets through the site. And suddenly within a couple of days, we were literally sold out of the car mats. We'd been cleared out, and we had to place a reorder to get more in. And we literally had people like contacting us saying, you know, when are the car mats coming back in? We want those car mats. And when we got the restock back in, they were quickly out the door again. Yeah. So that was probably one of the first times. That wasn't long after we'd installed Segmentify on the site, and that was probably one of the first times that you could really sit back and say, wow, that's how this can really work for us. It was a real tangible example.
Yeah. No, it's so great. And did you, just out of interest actually, because as you know, Segmentify's kind of, you know, value proposition, if you like, for want of a better word, is that we always try and prove ourselves before you commit to anything. How was it through the proof of concept? Did you see anything start to happen even at that stage with the POC?
I've got a funny feeling that car mat example was actually during that proof of concept. But we definitely did see, I mean, obviously you get access to the full dashboards and the information as to how much every widget's contributing. You can actually get in real time. Yeah. So it didn't take long for us to start to see that it was having a real impact.
No, it's interesting. This is what I'm so encouraged by, is that, you know, we typically don't do anything more than like a 14-day POC typically, because the engines, as you know, we found this, that because of the speed at which the engines pick up what's going on, that's really our core thing. You know, that the ability to really capture the journey super quick in terms of a real-time conversion tool effectively, is really where we found the benefit. And literally it can be a matter of hours when you've managed to get your widgets onto the site. And because you're not waiting for very long to actually build a picture of what that customer's doing, it actually drives results so phenomenally quickly that I suppose it allows Segmentify to be able to go to market and say, well, look, you know, we'll do the free POC because it's only going to be a matter of hours or a few days before you realize that we're actually delivering what we're saying, and you can make an informed decision, which I suppose is, you know, is a really lovely place to be.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the big appeals of Segmentify in the first place. Was, I mean, I met some of the team at the IRX in Birmingham kind of last April 2019, and kind of, you, as an e-commerce, someone that works in e-commerce, you get a lot of approaches on a kind of weekly basis from people who are telling you that they're going to double your revenue or whatever it might be. But the thing that really appealed to me was the fact that it was, look, this isn't going to cost you anything. All we need to do is put a bit of code on your website, and then we know that this will work for you, and we're backing ourselves here to put this on your site, and we're pretty confident that you will see the results in that 14-day period and that you'll want to continue with us. And if you don't, that's fine. We'll just remove the code and that's the end of it. And that really appealed to me because I think there isn't a lot of that in the industry, to be honest. I think people want you to to take a leap of faith. They want money up front. When you don't even know what the results are going to be, you can have a business case based on data that you've given them, but you don't actually know what's going to happen with these things until you start seeing it in a live environment, right? So the fact that we were able to have that proof of concept period was the reason that we went with Segmentify. And as I say, it didn't take very long for us to start seeing the tangible results.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's really great to hear that. So were there any, I mean, obviously in terms of the implementation, we're talking obviously product recommendations and on-site search. How have you got on with on-site search, for example, so far? And
yeah, so we've seen a little bit of improvement in on-site search. I think we had a pretty good on-site search to start with. So I think we're working hard with the team to kind of think of different ways that we can continue to improve that. We've tried to make some tweaks to it, just to call out the search bar a little bit more and make it feel a little bit more personalized for people when they're in there. It's definitely had a positive impact, maybe not as much as some of the other areas, but as I say, again, we've identified that, and we're working with the team on how we can get the most out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice that we've got the managed services team to try and help you as well in terms of, you know, driving best practice and the roadmap for it as well, you know, to start bringing in search results pages and faceted filtered search and merchandising and stuff. So it'd be exciting to kind of continue gaining your feedback from that and driving the gains forward. And then what about tell us about the push notification side of things. How have you how have you been getting on with that?
Very well. So push wasn't a channel that we used before, and I think that's probably quite common, especially in the UK. I think there's still a little bit of a nervousness around using push. I think people think of it as being quite intrusive, that you're suddenly sending a push notification to somebody's browser. We felt that we were probably quite well placed to deploy it, in as much as if you're a Celtic supporter and you're opting in to receive messages, then you're probably not going to get annoyed about something popping up in your browser because you live and breathe the club. But I do think it's something that's probably underutilized in e-commerce in the UK. We've very quickly built an audience on there. We got a lot of sign-ups straight away, and it's allowed us really to just have another tool to be able to push messages out, whether that's a kit launch or whether we've got a sale on or whether it's a new product that's come in. It's just a really simple way of pushing that message out to a large audience. And we've had to learn, obviously, because having not done it before, we've been very keen to use the reports in Segmentify to see what works, what doesn't work, the same way as you would do with an email campaign or anything else, and start to refine how we actually use it. So we've now got a much better idea of the sort of levers to pull with push. But it, as well as the kind of promotional messages, we have like back in stock push notifications that go out, product recommendations for people. So I think, again, that's something that we'll continue to work with the team on improving, but it's definitely been a great start. It's something that we didn't have before, and it's become an important part of what we do.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense to me more than anything, actually, when you're talking about a football club and, you know, you've got loyal visitors, you know, loyal customers that would probably want to hear about their club. Because it's a really big thing, isn't it? The loyalty to your football club, so it doesn't surprise me that push notification actually is something you could really explore, just to keep that almost like the news of what's going on with, like you say, different campaigns or different initiatives, different things that are going on. So yeah, that sounds really exciting. And then obviously to be able to push that eventually through email as well. We mentioned earlier, not at the moment, but certainly for the future, it sounds like, in terms of the, you know, advancing email campaigns in a similar way.
Yes, absolutely. That's the next thing on the roadmap with the team, really. So, for example, things like abandoned basket emails at the moment, we have a solution, but it only really works for a very small percentage of people who use our site on a daily basis. So people need to be logged in to be able to get an abandoned basket email, and not many of the people who shop on our site tend to log into their account. So we're working with the team to look at a way of being able to capture more people who are abandoning baskets and then trigger an email out to them. And also, as you say, then trying to work it into our actual promotional emails, trying to make them a little bit more personalised. We tend to be a little bit more just a bulk send of email to everybody in our database at the moment for whatever offer we've got on at that particular time. So that's an area that we kind of acknowledge we could do better when it comes to personalising content and making it more relevant, so that people are more likely to click through rather than it just ending up in a trash folder.
Yeah, no, completely. So just to finish off, like what we've been talking about, are there any sort of other sort of tangible returns from the deployment of Segmentify so far that we haven't sort of covered?
No, I'd say we've probably covered the main ones. As I say, we have a monthly call with the team, which is really useful. We review all the results. We talk about things that we want to implement, and they come at us with ideas as much as we come with ideas, which is great. It feels like a proper partnership. You feel like the team want you to keep pushing them to come up with new ideas for how they can implement the solution on the website. So those are really useful, and it gives me confidence that we can just continue to build on the success we've had so far.
Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. And that's a really interesting to close on, because that's another thing that we appreciate is very, very important, and also we're very proud of, in the sense that we don't hold anybody to ransom. I think we mentioned before is that one of the other things that a lot of people really respect is the fact that we're not locking people in to long contracts and changing price brackets or consultancy costs X, Y, whatever it might be. And I think that's interesting how it fits with the team, because the team, we need to make sure we're driving things forward in the way that you're talking about, just because it's a 30-day monthly rolling contract and there's no lengthy time that you can become complacent and you've got to wait such and such an amount of time before you renew and so on. So I think that does work in a day and age where there should be an accountability, I think, in business. And I really think that, the culture of Segmentify, as you've probably seen in terms of, that managed services team and the wider business, are really trying to drive that kind of accountability across everybody. And I'm really kind of excited that kind of floats through to the front line to our customers and the sort of things you've been talking about. But it's been really interesting to chat to you about these great examples of how genuinely you've taken a tool and you've transformed part of the way in which you were running the business and seen some amazing returns from it. Just in terms of people contacting you, I mean, if anybody out there in your space, particularly in football, or anyone else out there that's currently outsourcing, for example, or is considering looking at their personalization strategy or whatever, if they were to contact you, what would be the best way to do that?
People can email me. I'd be happy for them to email me. My email address is jbruce@celticfc.co.uk, or alternatively they can do the old search on LinkedIn and find me there and drop me a message. Either way, I'd be happy to hear from people. Yeah,
wonderful. That's great. Thanks, John. And then just as a final thing, I like to ask this for all the guys that I speak to is, do you have anything you're passionate about life, about business, e-commerce, whatever, that you'd love the guys to take away from this chat?
Yeah, I think from an e-commerce and from a business point of view, I'm a firm believer that you need to put, it sounds simple, but you need to put the customer at the heart of everything that you do. And I think sometimes that gets lost. There's so much technology out there now, and as I mentioned earlier, people contact you on a daily basis promising or claiming to double your revenue or triple your conversion rate or whatever it might be, and it always seems almost too good to be true. But I think you need to take a step back and think about it from your customer's viewpoint. Will this technology actually improve the experience for the customer? And the chances are, if it does, and it makes you more customer centric as a business, then it's probably worth investing in. And if it doesn't, then it probably isn't. So I think that's something that that's something I kind of try and talk about in our business and to other people, is just thinking about things from that customer.
No, totally. Yeah, completely agree. And yeah, I think we're completely aligned there, in the sense that that's what we try and do as well, you know, when it comes to working with Celtic and our customers in general. But as I say, thank you so much, John, for that really, really insightful chat. And thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you found it really useful. And as you know, if you haven't done so already, do go over to segmentify.com/eCommerce Growth Show or podcast to sign up and receive any of the podcasts and vlogs that we're doing in the ongoing series and the previous ones. And if there's any topics in general you want us to discuss or research, or you want to be on the show to talk about anything, do get in touch at phil@segmentify.com anytime, and we can have a chat about it. But yeah, just to finish off, say thanks so much, John, once again for the great chat.
Thanks, Phil. My pleasure.
Not at all, not at all. And look forward to joining you in the box at some point soon.
When we get fans back in,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to get the fans in first. But yeah, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening and watching. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon.